So thank you everybody for inviting me today. So the presentation will be done performing two parts. I will start with the first part and Monica will take over for the rest of the presentation. So the purpose of this presentation is to give you an update of our HMA task force on availability and affordability of medicines. Next slide, please. So basically our agenda today would be to review the new structure and composition of this task force. Then we will see also the work program to 2025, and we will review some updated terms of reference. And finally, we will also have a few words on the extension of the mandate for 3 years. Next slide, please. So as background information, the activities were put on hold due to the COVID crisis. And we have some changes in the co-chair since Noel was retiring and Christine left the Estonian agency. And therefore, both Monica for the EMA side and myself from the HMA side were appointed as new co-chairs. The activities were resumed on the 15th of December 2021. Next slide, please. So we have a new structure to propose, and or it has already been approved. We regroup thematic working group 1 and 2 into one, and we kept the thematic working group on communication. So now we have the task force steering committee and 2 thematic working group, one dealing with availability and supply disruption, and the second one on communication. It was meant to ensure alignment of the activities within the regulatory network, being the MN strategy to 2025, being the joint action on shortages, as well as the EMA extended mandate. The new structure and composition has 3 main goals: streamline processes, foster synergies, as well as avoid duplication of work within the network, which might often be the case because we have a lot of work stream and everybody is very interested, rightfully so, in availability and affordability of medicine. Next slide, please. So here is the new composition of the task force. So we have invited the lead of Team 1 of the European Medicine Agency. We have also the lead of the joint action also, which is Domenico. We have the chairs of the CMDX, as well as new members appointed from Slovenia, as well as the Polyolish Institute in Germany. And beside this, we also got 2 new members, Constance and Consuelo, that one from Spain and one from Germany, that are more focusing on the veterinary side, replacing Jean-Pierre. Next slide, please. So the idea of this task force is really to serve as a hub for all activities around the EU regulatory network, and it's a key element to ensure coordination and avoid duplication of work stream. Next slide, please. So the work program that was adopted by the steering committee and subsequently by both the HMA and the EMA management board have been built on the objective to describe, in Team 1 of the European Medicine Agency Network Strategy to 2025, and will include actions such as HMA multi-annual work program, EMA single programming document, ongoing action from previous work program that has not been completely or fully completed, and also action related to the availability of medicine assigned to existing working group within the EMANS, being, for instance, the electronic patient information or the biosimilar, for instance. We will go for an alignment with joint action on shortages and the EC pharmaceutical strategy in order, again, to ensure synergies and avoid duplication of work. Next slide, please. And this will be my last slide from presenting, and it will just to give you an add-on on the fact that we will update the terms of reference because they were initially drafted in 2016, and the current mandate will end in December 2022. Revision was necessary because we had new development in the area of availability and shortages. We have a new structure on the task force, and we need to extend the mandate for a further 3 years. The revised term of reference were adopted by the steering committee in April and adopted by both HMA and AAM management board just after that, and it was completed in June. So I will pass on the mic now to Monica, that is in the meeting room with you. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much for this very complete introduction. And now I give the floor to Monica.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. So I will continue now with the next slides, and I will focus primarily on the activities foreseen for the task force to 2025. So as Hugo mentioned, so we have extended the mandate for a further 3 years to 2025. And this is because the European medicines strategy is to 2025. So we need to ensure that we can cover all the objectives in theme 1, availability, under this task force. As also Hugo already mentioned, so we have now 2 thematic working groups, one that covers availability and supply disruptions, and another one on communication. Now, we have activities that are reflected in our work program. So we translated the strategy to 2025 into activities under our work program. And that work program was adopted initially in January by the steering committee of the task force. And then there was a subsequent adoption by HMA in May and the management board in June. And this is all published in our website. So we actually move forward in terms of transparency. We have our full work program now published. Now, let me just go into a little bit more detail on some activities that have already been completed and others that are ongoing. And I start with TWG1, so Thematic Working Group 1. So here, one of the main activities, so when we restarted the task force, as Hugo mentioned, the activities were on hold during the COVID pandemic due to the COVID BCP. And once we restarted at the end of last year, we very quickly needed to fulfill one of our actions, which was to put in place a number of proposals for changes to the legislation to improve prevention and management of shortages. So this is in the context of the pharma strategy. Those proposals were drafted by this thematic working group 1, then subsequently adopted by the steering committee, and we even had an HMA consultation so that we ensure that the whole of the network was aligned on those proposals. And then we passed those proposals to the European Commission. What have we worked on as well? The good practice for industry on prevention of shortages for medicinal products for human use. So this is one guidance that focuses on human medicines at this point in time. And we've put a number of practices in this guidance, and we've presented that draft guidance to industry associations. So we had a discussion in a meeting between the steering committee of the task force and industry associations on the 12th of September. This was followed by a written consultation. So currently we are under consultation with the industry associations on that document, the good practice on prevention of shortages for industry. So we've also had, and this actually comes from the work program from the previous task force, what preceded this new structure. And Hugh mentioned that the work program of our task force for 2025 also encompasses some of those actions that have not been finalized. And one of those was the implementation of the guidance on detection and notification of shortages by MAHs. And we wanted to implement that guidance through a pilot project. We had agreed to launch a pilot to implement the guidance, which was published in July of 2019, so before the COVID pandemic. And what we've realized is because all this period that the actual activities were put on hold during the COVID pandemic, what we realized through a survey that we did to the national competent authorities is that during the COVID pandemic, many national competent authorities actually already implemented the guidance. So using the template that is part of this guidance on notification of shortages. So there was no need as such to implement the guidance through a pilot project. But of course, we will continue the discussions and this, of course, under the pharma strategy as well. Now, in terms of activities in the veterinary sector, important to mention that just finalizing the implementation of the new vet regulation that aims at improving availability of vet medicines. But very much what we're doing within Thematic Working Group 1 is seeing once we're applying those guidances to human medicines, whether they can and should be extended to the vet sector. So this is what we're doing at the moment. Now, also important, there's a number of activities under TWG1 in terms of increasing harmonization of processes within the network, so within the UEA, but also with international partners. So we're working more closely with international regulators as well. Now I move on to TWG2, communications. Of course, this thematic working group has a great commitment to transparency, and as I mentioned, we published the work plan of the task force as well as the revamped composition of the new task force. We have regular updates and publications of outcome of the work of the task force, so any new guidance that is developed is subsequently published. And also the group is revising the practices in order to further enhance communication on supply problems to EU citizens, their representatives, and of course, healthcare professionals. Now, we have also the good practice guide for patients and healthcare professional organizations on the prevention of shortage. So what I was just referring that we're currently developing for industry, that's already finalized for healthcare professionals and patients organizations. That is already done and it's published. And now, of course, we are in collaboration with the stakeholders defining metrics to monitor the implementation of the guidance. And again, the way we're doing for Thematic Working Group 1 with activities in the vet sector, what we're exploring as well is the possibility to extend this guidance to the vet sector. In terms of communication to the public on medicines availability issues, we had already published also in July 19 the Good Practice Guide for Communication to the Public on medicines availability issues, and we continue to monitor and analyze implementation of this guidance, and my colleague Inga will give you more detail on that. Now, very important, and we'll get to that as well, the multi-stakeholder workshop that is planned for March 2023. So this is, again, a main activity for TWG2. And we have a point in the agenda, so I will leave the discussion for that agenda point. And now I just want to finalize my presentation, just mentioning that, as Hugo said during the first slides of the presentation, we want to use this task force and its steering committee to have a coordination of the various activities under the network. So also with the European Commission, so with all member states, all the activities that are aiming at improving availability of medicines. And what we do at the level of the steering committee is tracking progress of those activities. So one example is the EPI project. We also tracking progress on the use of electronic formats for vet medicines. Also, in terms of biosimilars, so very important, there is one important objective of the strategy to 2025, which is to increase the uptake of biosimilars. So we have here a very close link with the HMA working group on biosimilars. Also very important and mentioned in our strategy to 2025 is the promotion of the use of the multilingual packaging. There are a number of activities that take place at the level of the CMDH. They have a CMDH working group on the multilingual packaging, and the task force is also tracking the progress that is ongoing with that pilot that they have implemented. And also important, the publication of information on marketing status for centrally authorized products, although this now is going to be taken over by the new regulation, the extended mandate of EMA. So I think this is my last slide. Yes, so we're happy to answer any questions you might have on our activities or any other questions. Thank you.